Hello everybody, this is English for You, the program that helps you improve your English. A very warm welcome. In the studio I have my enthusiastic, intelligent-looking, smiling Fazekas students. How's everybody doing? Kata?
Fine, thank you.
Brilliant. Szabolcs, how are you doing?
I'm also fine, thanks.
Great. Victor?
Fine, thank you.
Victoria?
Fine, thanks.
Great. Today's special guest is Professor E.R. Braithwaite. Professor was born in British Guyana, and as a young man he moved to Great Britain. During the Second World War he joined the Royal Air Force and became a fighter pilot. Then he received his master's degree in physics from Cambridge University. Then he turned to teaching in one of the roughest areas of London, and he's had 5 decades of teaching experience. Repeat, 5 decades, 50 years. He's served as Guyana's ambassador to the United Nations, then to Venezuela. Then he became educational consultant for the UNESCO, and later he moved to the United States, and he's currently teaching honors English at Howard University, Washington, D.C. Thank you very much for joining us, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I haven't mentioned this book, and the title is To Sir with Love, and it says the old-time classic schoolroom drama, which was published in 1959. And this book is very, very special to me. I wonder if you know, Professor, that this book was translated and published in Hungarian. And you can see your name here, E.R. Braithwaite, and you can see the Hungarian title, which is Tanár úrnak szeretettel.
I couldn't say that.
To Sir with Love. And it was in 1967. I was 12 years old. And I remember my stepfather sitting in front of the typewriter, busy translating. And after each chapter, he would come to me saying, "Victor, you must read this." And I read the pages and I enjoyed them. And believe it or not, this was your book. So I was the very first person, literally, to read your book in Hungarian. And you can see, translated by Kelecsényi Gábor, and Kelecsényi Gábor is my stepfather. So it's really, really very special. So you can imagine what an honor it is to me to have you on the program. Right. I have a problem. I've said that you were born in British Guyana. Now, in the film, based on your story, Sidney Poitier says Guyana. Then I checked the dictionary, and it says Guyana. So what is the proper pronunciation, sir?
When I was born, it was British Guyana. When it became independent, we wanted to remove ourselves as far as possible from the original controllers. So we reverted to the original name, Guyana.
Right. If you look at those desks, old-fashioned school desks, do they remind you of your school days back in Guyana?
Yes.
How were the teachers then? Were they strict?
My teachers were superb. Superb. Because you see, they were part of us. And they saw us as taking over from them. I don't think any of them imagined that we would leave Guyana to go anywhere. So we were being prepared to contribute to the country's development in Guyana.
So excellent.
Oh,
excellent.
Absolutely.
Now,
excellent.
my students are on the other side of the barricade. We are both teachers. How do you imagine the ideal teacher? Kata?
Well, I think firstly he must have an interest for what he teaches, and he must be close to the children who he teaches, but still he has to keep some distance because of the order, because else it becomes a little bit difficult to
handle them, to
yes.
control them. Thank you. Nice idea. Szabolcs?
Well, I think teacher has to keep changing between permissiveness and strictness every time. So once he or she has to be lax and cool to the children, then they have to keep distance. And with this, they can keep balance.
Right. May I turn to you, Professor? Now, I'm going to have a couple of words here on the projector, and you might agree with those words. So what makes a good teacher? Sense of vocation, academic qualification, empathy. We have teaching experience here and lesson planning. Would you agree with these elements, or would you please order them or add your own ideas to it?
When I see that, I remember my first teaching experience, and none of those things mattered to me. I wanted a job. I was not trained to teach. I needed a job. This job happened, so I took it. And I wanted to be able to behave like a teacher. But the students never sat like that. They're all here, nicely dressed, fresh-looking, enthusiastic. Oh, how I wish it could have been like that.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to come back to this point. Now, this is a very special occasion because everybody in the studio has read the book and has seen the film, but our viewers don't know anything about the story. So, Victoria, would you be so kind as to put the story in a nutshell, not in a coconut shell, so in a nutshell, okay?
Okay. I suppose it is basically about your life. So we've already, so you've already told us a couple of things, but it's about Sir, who was born in British Guyana, and he's black, and he has great respect for British culture especially, and goes to London with great illusions and finds that there is negative discrimination against black people, so he doesn't find a job, and this is his only choice after 18 months to be a teacher at a pretty rough place, as you've already said. And he then finally reforms the life of a whole class in a rundown school. And
thank you, excellent. I've taught her English. I'm just amazed. Thank you very much, Victoria. That's great. Now we are going to see a scene from the film To Serve with Love, starring Sidney Poitier. And this is the time when Professor Braithwaite first meets the class. So would you roll the tape, please? Professor, you still remember the moment when you first met them?
I do.
So how was it?
I was disturbed. I wanted a job, but when I saw what that job entailed, I didn't know if I could do it.
Yes, and I've read that they were disadvantaged students. How can students be, in what ways can students be disadvantaged?
You know, that word means a variety of things. These students were disadvantaged in that they were poor. Before the war, they were very young. During the war, they were moved out of London for their safety. At the end of the war, they came back to the same location, but everything had changed. Where formerly they had an apartment with their parents of 3 or 4 rooms, now many of them had to live as a family in 1 room. So the pressures on them were severe.
So they were basically disadvantaged because of financial reasons?
Well, financial, social, cultural.
Culture, all kinds
everything,
of... Yeah.
yes.
Professor, you've been invited by the United States Embassy to Hungary to be the special guest of Black History Month. What is it, sir?
It is an attempt by the United States to show the contributions by black people to the state's ethos. For a long time, black people were taken for granted. Nothing they did really mattered. Except here and there you would find a black actor, a black athlete,
musician.
Musician, but it was never imagined that they were contributors to the central culture of the United States.
Thank you very much. Now, there's going to be a sentence here. When you left British Guyana, you were full of ideas and you admired the British way of life. Now, here is a fantastic sentence from your book. Yes, it is wonderful to be British until one comes to Britain. Now, on the one hand, this paradox is very British. So it could have been written by Shaw, it could have been written by Chesterton, it could have been written by Oscar Wilde. On the other hand, it's a scathing criticism. So what happened that made you so disillusioned?
The realization when I met students at Cambridge, an institution of learning, who knew nothing about the British Empire and its people. They knew there was an empire, they felt strong because of that empire, but when they met somebody like me, to hear me speak English was strange to them. To know that I understood the English mores was strange to them. They would engage me in conversation, not for the content of the conversation, but merely to discover whether I had the vocabulary, the language.
Mm-hmm. And then when you wanted to find a job, then came another blow, I believe.
The British were so accustomed to black people being subservient. To meet an educated black person who could challenge them in their own language.
Yes, when I was reading your book, this word came to my mind, hypocrisy. And I think that's what you encountered in Britain. Is it true, or I'm very wrong?
It was absolutely true.
So what do we mean by hypocrisy here? Would you help me?
By hypocrisy, I mean sugarcoating your prejudice, overlarding it with nice words, nice terms. But yet, underneath, it was raw and painful and ugly.
Thank you. We're going to have another scene from the film. It's going to be a colored boy called Seals. And I would like you to watch for this. What is Seals' problem? Would you roll the tape, please?
Something the matter, Seals? Seals? There's something wrong.
Must be Mum. She's awful sick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anything I can do?
Nothing. She's English.
I see.
You're like my old man, except you're bigger and younger. Rotten bastard.
You shouldn't speak like that about your father.
Yeah, nothing. I hate him. Hate him. Why not, eh? Never forgive him what he did to me, Mum. Never. Well, he married her, didn't he? Didn't he?
Victor, please.
His mother is sick, and he hates his father.
Why?
Because he married to his mother.
And what's the problem here?
His father is black.
Right. And what do you think Seals means by this?
That he's a half black and half white person.
Right. Right. You remember? I think this is a dramatic invention of the film. Seals is in the book, but not this scene. Right? Am I right? Now, but there's a couple of sentences concerning Seals in your book, and here we go. Kota, would you be so kind as to read them out?
Sure. A West Indian boy with an English mother, always the same. Never an English boy with a West Indian father.
Oh, what did you mean by this?
By that I mean that the emphasis always is on his being different, his being black. See, you walk along the street and you see a black boy, you engage him in conversation, he's an English boy, everything about him is English, but he's not encouraged to believe that he's English.
Right. It's always very easy to point your finger at other countries. But let's just stay in Hungary, and let's just convert this to Hungarian circumstances. And let's say that the mother is not English, but Hungarian, and we are in Hungary. What would you make the West Indian father in Hungary? Just to understand the weight of this.
Gypsy person.
Gypsy, a Roma person. So what, and this is my question, what would you call a boy with a Hungarian mother and a Roma father? Kata?
Of course, Hungarian, no question.
You would call, because you are very nice.
Thank you.
Do you think everybody would call this boy a Hungarian boy with a gypsy father, or just the other way around? Because I suspect that there's a danger that some of us would call this boy a Roma boy with a Hungarian mother. Just let's think about it. Let's not go on with this, but I would like you to think about this. Right. Now, the next scene is, I called it the wreath scene from the film. Now, wreath is an arrangement of flowers in the shape of a circle given at a funeral. And here, Syl's mother has died, and the students are collecting for a wreath. Again, your question is, what is the problem? Would you roll the tape, please?
What are you doing, Jackson?
It's for Seal, sir. For flowers and a wreath and
Oh,
stuff.
that's wonderful of you. May I be permitted to contribute something?
No, thank you, Mr. Thackeray. Here, Pamela. You buy the wreath, eh?
Her name's Dare. Miss Dare.
Yeah, well, you buy the wreath. Send it round when the time's right.
Send it. Aren't you going to take it?
You don't think the girls could take it, do you?
Well, why not?
Well, it's what people would say, sir. What the family'd say if they saw us going into a coloured person's home, sir.
We've got nothing against you, sir. Honest. But if one of us was... Well, you can't imagine the things we said, sir.
Thank you, Mrs. Spagg, for making it clear.
Victoria, please.
It's that white people are not supposed to go around with colored ones because they will be despised in a way by others.
Right, subject to gossips and things like this, right? When I first watched this, there were tears in my eyes, literally. So how were you feeling? It's not just the dramatic invention of the film.
Oh, no,
it's in the book.
It happened, absolutely happened. But you will notice this. When I asked, one of the girls spoke, she says, it's what people would say if they see us going to a colored person's home. The boy's mother was white. They didn't mention a white person's home. It became a colored person's home. You see? And that is what I have found time and time again in Britain. At all levels, the idea of black people being separate, distinct, outsiders, doesn't matter what they did, who they were always so different.
Yeah, now, in the book, I've read another sentence, and you were referring to the United States. And you wrote, there, when prejudice is felt, it is open, obvious, and blatant. What did you mean by that?
By that I meant, consider the South, just for argument's sake. There was a time when it was clear, a white person, whites only, a black person, blacks only. So you were not in any doubt as to what the situation was. You'll never see that in Britain, never.
And is it easier to fight against that?
It's always easier to fight against what you can see and feel, you know. Otherwise, like I once said to a friend of mine, fighting prejudice in Britain is like having a fist fight with smoke. What do you hit? What do you feel?
Yes, and there's just one other sentence I would like you to project here, and this is it. One thing I learned is to try always to be a bit bigger than the people who hurt me. Now, this is your answer against prejudice? You still believe it?
I still believe it.
And what do you mean by being bigger than the people who hurt you?
When they see me, it is their intention to reduce me to the minimum. I must always be so concerned with my worth that I defy them to do this.
Right. Sir, is it possible to change the world?
I don't know. I never conceive of wanting to change the world. I like to think that I might, in some small way, influence wherever I am, that little space where I am, the people with whom I come in contact. The world can take care of itself.
And you think your book has changed a lot?
So it would seem. I encounter people in many parts of the world who refer to my book. When I wrote it, I had no idea it would influence anyone outside of my immediate environment.
Thank you very much. Now I'm turning to my students. Would you like to ask anything about the book, about the film, or the differences between the book and the film? If the answer is yes, would you please put up your hand? Okay, Kata,
I would be curious if the makers of the film had asked you about these scenes and all these things that happens in the film and the book, because there were some differences between the two things, and I think that the film is pretty good and gives back the main feeling and the main thing about the book. I mean, did they ask you?
Before the film was made, I was invited to fly from Paris to London to be on the set. And the director, who unhappily is now dead, said to me, Mr. Braithwaite, we'd like you to be on the set so that from time to time we can discuss and consult with you. I'm still waiting for a discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question? Victoria?
Were you upset because the most striking to me was that the film was a little bit more like how the world is today. It was seeking impact on viewers, and it wasn't so natural as your book, so it was more like an invented story. And
people who make movies are always trying to entertain. My book was not intended to entertain. So they tried to project it in a way that would make people laugh or whatever. I couldn't care less. This was exactly what was in here, and I tried to put it on the book as I felt it.
Thank you. Szabolcs?
Well, why did you go on with teaching? So after this, this experience, or has it some other part?
I was paid so little as a teacher that whenever I received my paycheck, I had to count the pennies. And then I began writing about teaching. I began writing about the school. I received an invitation from Paris to go over there and work for a salary that paid me about 5 or 6 times more. I was out of there in a hurry.
Yes, I know what you're talking about, Mr. Braithwaite, exactly. I know it's not very original, but I would like you to write something in this book, and could it be To Victor with Love?
Why not? Why not?
Okay, thank you very much. It's very kind of you. And it's been a great pleasure to have you on the program. And good luck to you, and take care. See you next week. It's going to be English for you again. Bye-bye.
Is it with a K or a C?
With a K. And I think my students would like to have that too. Thank you very much. It's been.